politicians going to listen before wasting even more of our money? Now, the latest winner of the Nobel Prize for Physics says, warning, you are being conned about the supposed global warming catastrophe.
I believe that the climate change is not a crisis.
Now, I'll show you in a minute who he is and what he said and how it's being censored. But today, a reminder why politicians must listen to people like this, can't afford not to. Yet another green energy project has bitten the dust, and this time a scheme in Broome to get the big tides there to drive generators placed along the inlet. Now, this project, or Derby actually, this project in Derby got a grant of $1 million from the Howard government, was promised $80 million along the journey, but no go. And this now joins so many other failures. Our global warming assessed governments have been driving our reliable coal-fired generators out of business, but they keep failing to find the renewable energy to replace all that that's cheap and reliable. For instance, the Rudd government awarded $90 million to a geothermal plant that global warming guru Tim Flannery swore, this will be easy, a doddle. But the world's collapsed and the project was abandoned. The Rudd and Gillard governments also agreed to fund generators driven by waves, except they didn't work either. Some sank, one off Port Kembla, another off the South Australian coast. A project in Western Australia also failed. And then came Liberal Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull with his Snowy 2.0, essentially a giant battery which supposed to use wind power and solar power at times when we had a lot to push water from a low dam to a dam higher up, so that when our cities really needed electricity, we could let that water fall down again to make hydroelectric power. Another disaster. Turnbull said it cost $2 billion. Total project, including wires, now tipped to cost $20 billion if it ever gets finished. And on it goes. Disaster after disaster. Energy Minister Chris Bowen, global warming fanatic, demanded a new power station at Kurri Kurri, New South Wales, run on hydrogen, which has been touting as a miracle green fuel. But no one could make it work, and now Bowen's plans to get lots more wind and solar projects to give us 82% renewable electricity by 2030, well, that's being called bullshit and worse by energy company bosses. Impossible, they say. So you just think now of all that money that's been wasted, or why don't you just go and have a look how your power bills have gone up and up by about 25% or so in the eastern states just this month alone. But what if it is all for nothing? And what if the truth is being kept from you? So, back to that Nobel Prize winner, the man who won the world's top prize for physics just last October is an American, Dr. John Clauser, who won for his work on quantum entanglement. Don't ask me to explain that. Just accept this is an exceptionally clever scientist. But here's the thing. Last month, Dr. Clauser gave a speech in South Korea. Or last week it was, a message to inspire young scientists. He told them, listen, don't just go with the flow. There's a lot of misinformation out there, a lot of vested interest pushing this fake science, so study the evidence. That's his advice. Follow the science. Great stuff. And he gave this example of a scientific institution pushing misinformation. The United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the IPCC, the top body for spreading global warming panic.
Now, I am not alone in observing the dangerous proliferation of pseudoscience. Recently, the Nobel Foundation has formed a new panel to address the issue called the International Panel on Information Environment. They plan to model it after the UN's International Panel on Climate Change, the IPCC. I think personally that they are making a big mistake in that effort because, in my opinion, the IPCC is one of the worst sources of dangerous misinformation.
Now, beyond don't trust the IPCC and be wary of people trying to massage the information, this is the message Clauser really wanted to ram home. You are being conned on global warming.
I believe that the climate change is not a crisis. I can confidently say there is no real climate crisis, and that climate change does not cause extreme weather events.
Now, Clauser is far from alone among world-leading scientists, warning us the global warming scare is wildly exaggerated. Spoken to any number of them, Richard Lindzen, Judith Curry, William Happer, Roy Spencer, Nia Shaviv, others. But here's what now happened to even John Clauser, who's so brilliant, just won a Nobel Prize. He was just about to give this speech to the International Monetary Fund. How much can we trust IPCC projections? The projections predicting all kinds of climate disasters, the kind of predictions that has the IMF trying to get financial institutions around the world to try to save us from this Armageddon. And guess what? The IMF has now cancelled that speech. They cancelled that warning that we and they are wasting a colossal amount of money on saving ourselves from a crisis that doesn't exist. All that money. When in fact that small warming that we have seen, that increase in carbon dioxide as well, plant food, means the world is in fact greening. And so much so that we've never had bigger crops of grain foods like rice and wheat globally. Although, you know, claims that some people say, oh, there's more disasters. Well, that's extremely dubious on the evidence I see. And what we certainly can say for sure is we've never had so few deaths from climate disasters, even though the world's population has quadrupled over the century. So how much longer before our politicians have the guts to start asking the question, is the danger of global warming exaggerated? Is the cure worse than the disease? Look at all these failed schemes. Look at your power bills. Do you really think global warming is going to hurt us more than this?